Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 9:30 p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, Wednesday night, August the 18th. I'm happy to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention, and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. I have the chat room open if anybody would like to sit in there. And we're just going to continue on with the PDF. We were looking at this for the last 2 weeks, pretty much in the evenings, and it's quite lengthy. It's from the Child Welfare Information Gateway, and it's I don't know, it's a great PDF. We were on about page 45, 50, and I kind of scrolled through and found a few things I wanted to talk about tonight. Like, it's 114 pages long, but you can find this PDF download at www.childwelfare.gov/pubs, P-U-B-S, /user manuals, /foundation.pdf. And some of it I didn't want to bother going into because it's quite lengthy, and it's mostly it's for Child Protection Service workers and things like that. But mainly there was a few things I wanted to look at, really, as far as reporting child abuse goes. And they have some pretty good information here. So Child Abuse and Neglect User Manual Series, this is what this is from. It's called A Coordinated Response to Child Abuse and Neglect, the Foundation for Practice. And it's put out by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, Administration on Children, Youth and Families, Children's Bureau, and Office on Child Abuse and Neglect. It's a great PDF, and I've enjoyed going through the material. It was put out in 2003, but it's still more current than some of the stuff that we see out there. I know there's more up-to-date information, but this was just so, inclusive, like just everything all in one spot, and I just thought we'd just take a look at it. The information is really quite good. So we left off talking about the consequences of child abuse, and that was Monday night. And now I want to take a look at reporting child abuse and the issues that sort of surround that whole thing, why people don't report it even though they know what's going on or suspect that it's going on. There's many reasons why people don't report it, and sadly enough, these children, they need our help. You know what I mean? If we don't report it, if we're not going to be their voice and stand up for them and try to protect them, what chance do they have in these homes where there's a lot of physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, child sexual abuse going on? We have to really be diligent and do the right thing. It is the law, really, to report child abuse. And it's against the law not to report child abuse. It's against the law to abuse a child. And abuse is a choice. These people are choosing to do what they're doing. And we have to stop this. We really do. These children, no child deserves this treatment. And there's no perfect parent out there. But the whole issue is there's a whole lot of people killing their children. And that's why I'm doing these shows. You have to listen at your own discretion. I'm just a private citizen who pays to do my own blog talk shows. I am the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And I'm a fight against child abuse, standing up for children, fighting against human rights abuses, really. But mainly for children because they don't have a voice. If we're not their voice, they don't have one. And so we have to stop child abuse, and that's why I do these shows, to get more, I'm constantly searching for information. I'm sort of in between courses. I haven't been able to go back to school. I haven't been able to afford it. I study international community development, child rights, and human rights, and youth justice and whatnot, and I'm in between courses. And so I'm always studying. I'm just researching all the time. Not only that, I'm a survivor of child abuse. And so I'm always looking for information regarding prevention of child abuse, how we're going to stop child abuse, how we're going to make this a better world for these children here today. And so, I just figured I'd just bring out this information to people. I'm not the only voice out here, thank God. And I'm just following behind a whole lot of other people who I heard talking about this on Blog Talk Radio. And I thought, hey, I'll get a show too. And I'll just start talking. And, I thank you to everybody who's tuning into my shows. I have almost 9,500 shows listened to. Your support is greatly appreciated. I've been talking day after day and night after night. You guys have all been listening to me, and I really appreciate it, let me tell you. This means a lot to me. It means a lot to me to be able to do this, to be able to raise my voice, and I never went public with my own story until last October. Even though I had talked to people about it, there was an intervention done with CPS or DHS, whichever one, when I was a toddler. And I had talked about, the abuse that I suffered in our family situation many times to different people, especially youth, my own friends in childhood and my youth and teenage years, and also into my 20s, and some people in my 30s, just people I trusted with the information. And most people, if you tell them you've been abused, they generally don't want to be your friend anymore because they think, oh God, here we go, another needy person. So I've lost a lot of friends along the way by disclosing the abuse to them. So I was kind of, not necessarily wanting to go public for a long time until last October, when I realized I could no longer sit on the sidelines. And I wanted to, about 3 years ago, I decided to get involved, 3.5 years ago, decided that it would be really what I need to do is get involved with child rights around the world, not just nationally. So I started getting busy, and then I thought, I want to do public speaking, and I want to get out there in the public and the media and be a public voice, to raise awareness and prevention of child abuse. And so I thought, I can't very well stand there and tell people that, they should report child abuse and that everyone should disclose child abuse, and if anyone has been abused, to get help and reach out. And then have somebody ask me the question, well, have you ever been abused? Have you ever experienced that? And for me to say no would be a flat-out lie. So I thought, I have to tell my story. And not only that, I did that for my brothers, because my brothers went to their graves with no one knowing the truth about the childhood that they lived through. And then sadly, one of my brothers committed suicide at the age of 33. Another brother died of a drug overdose at the age of 43, and another one of my brothers was murdered. So, they went to their graves in shame and silence, and people just thought they were losers. And, I knew the story. I knew what was happening to them when they were growing up. And so that's why it's so important for me to, in many ways, in every way, to do what I'm doing. And it's also very therapeutical for me to see this information and to get this information. So thank you so much for tuning into all my shows. I really appreciate it. So we left off on right around page 45, 46, and that was what are the consequences of child abuse. And then the next portions of this PDF are quite, almost clinical. So I didn't really want to get into that. You can take a look at that for yourself if you want to go through this PDF. It's really quite lengthy. But I ended up around page 70, and that is where I want to look at as far as reporting child abuse goes, because they have some good information here about why people don't report child abuse and why people in families who know the abuse is going on and still yet they don't report it. And this is sad because children are dying every day. We see children in the headlines, lives taken, little 2-month-old babies, little 9-week-old babies, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 12-year-olds, you name it. I mean, children are being killed at the hands of their parents and caregivers, and 95% of abuse is perpetrated by a family member, so that's a fact. About the other 10% or 5% might be daycare or situation, or a child sexual predator getting a hold of a child, or just some stranger getting a hold of a child. It's just very rare. 90 to 95% of abuse is done in the home, and it's usually by a family member. So this is the sad part. People know the abuse is going on. They turn a blind eye. Quite often there's so much dysfunction in the home that they can't even make a good decision for if their life depended on it or if the child's life depended on it. That's the whole sad thing. The child's life is depending on these adults in the situation to make the right decisions. To say, look, I know I love Uncle so-and-so and I love Aunt so-and-so, but they are killing their children. So even though we don't want to see Aunt and Uncle end up in jail and prosecuted and, found guilty of child abuse and put away or don't have to do time, I guess we want to keep them showing up to the barbecues because they bring the good steaks. So we just won't worry about the kids. And they turn a blind eye. And, this bothers me. It really does, because I'm a victim, and I'm a survivor of child abuse, thank God. And, I don't consider myself a victim anymore. So I'm a survivor. And so it bothers me that people can turn a blind eye when they know a child is being mistreated and maltreated at home or neglected, right? There's the whole issue with neglect as well, which is just as serious, and it's actually much more common. But it's often overlooked because the whole issue and the seriousness of physical child abuse, which can kill a child, that's the one that people want to stop right away. Child sexual abuse is right up there with that, because that can kill a child too, physically, right? So, neglect and emotional abuse and the other stuff just kind of sits in back behind all that, right? But the whole issue is it's just as serious, and it's just as much of a problem, and we have to do something about this, And for me, I do a lot of talking on my, in the morning about, my own issues with one child abuse survivor to another. And, so many people, quite often, always, there's someone that knows the abuse is going on, whether it's the other parent or the other partner in the situation, or a grandparent or a family member, close friend of the family might know there's some abuse going on, but they love that person, so they don't report it. And that's where I was talking about today. My parents had a lot of support. They had people that loved them and people that there's no way they would have turned in my parents, even knowing that my parents had already had a previous case of child abuse brought up against them. They went to court. They were charged, and they had to go to counseling. They were told to go to court-ordered counseling, or they would lose all of us. We'd be all removed from the home. So they went twice. They agreed, and they went twice. And so even though these people knew this, they knew that my parents were brought up on child abuse charges, they knew how my parents were treating us, and yet they loved my parents so much that they allowed the abuse to continue. They turned a blind eye to the bruises, to the welts, to the split lips, to the cracked heads, to the drug use, to the crime, to the criminal behavior and activity in our home. They turned a blind eye. They turned a blind eye to my mom's mental health, to my dad's mental health, because they loved my parents. Now that is sad. So we know it's happening. People love their family members, so they don't want to report the child abuse. But the thing is that children are dying in these homes, and someone's got to make the right decision and make a phone call, If you suspect child abuse, or there's abuse going on in a home, and you don't make a call, and that child dies, it's on your head. Not only that, but if they find out that you knew, you could be brought up on charges as well. So it's so important that people make the right choice and make the right decision and call someone and report it. You can report anonymously. You don't even have to give your name. You can stay right out of it if you want to, but you have to report it. It is the law. So I want to look at this section about page 70 of this PDF, and they're talking about why people don't report it. And I'm just scrolling down there right now. Reporting, here we go. It's quite interesting what it says here. Well, this actually talks about how to report and then why people don't report. It says the next step in responding to child maltreatment is to report the suspected incident. Although there is a tremendous variation in the requirements described in state reporting laws, they typically, and they list them off here, specify selected individuals mandated to report suspected child maltreatment, define reportable conditions, explain how, when, and to whom reports are to be filed, and the information to be contained in the report, describe the agencies designated to receive and investigate reports, describe the abrogation of certain privileged communication rights, doctor-patient and whatnot, provide immunity from legal liability for reporters, provide penalties for failure to report and false reporting. Key aspects of reporting laws are described in this next section. And they say that individuals typically designated as mandatory reporters are physicians, nurses, hospital personnel, and dentists, medical examiners, coroners, mental health professionals, social workers, school personnel, child care providers, and law enforcement officers. And, excuse me, they go on to talk about reporting procedures. It says how and when to report. The majority of states require that reports of child maltreatment be made orally, either by telephone or in person, to the specified authorities. And some states require that a written report follow the oral report, while in other states written reports are filed only upon request, and still other states require written reports only from mandated reporters. So I guess mainly it's orally over the telephone or in person. Reports of a suspected maltreatment are required by statute to be made immediately to protect children from potentially serious consequences that may be caused by a delay in reporting. While an individual may want to collect additional information before reporting, waiting for proof may place the child in danger. So that's what they always say, is like not to try to investigate it ourselves, right? Like if we suspect abuse, let's say I suspect a child's being abused, but I don't really know. Well, it's not up to me to go and investigate it. It's not up to me to knock on the door and say, hi, can I see your child for a few minutes? And, start looking at the child and making notes. And have you recently beat your child? It's not up to... are you feeding your child? It's not up to us to investigate it, right? It is up to us to report the suspicion. And you can always, just actually say, it's just a suspicion, but I'm reporting it. And, that's so important, right? Because suspicions, are generally, there's a reason why you're suspicious. There'd be a reason because you would notice that the child either has physical marks on the child, physical bruises or wounds, welts or just, strangulation marks on their neck, or, you just have to take a look at the signs and symptoms and know what they are for each different type of abuse, right? And then, you got to report it. And then, if you don't see any of that, but you just suspect it because the parents are fighting and then maybe there's some substance abuse there, or the caregivers, and the child's being bounced around back and forth to different family members and always looks neglected and whatnot, that's a sign, right? That is definitely a sign. It's really something to be, it's so serious. We could save a child's life. Look how many children ended up in the newspaper, the reports, this just today, coming off of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children website. I mean, just what's reported today is just enough to make a person just sick. And every day this is going on, right? So we have to, and it's because it's not being reported. And then sometimes it is reported, and of course they slip through the cracks, and I mean, that's just sad, but it does happen. There's cases where children have, the CPS or DHS or whichever authority has stepped in, and the child is, they just don't deem the child to be in danger, so they leave the child in the home, and then, the child ends up being killed by their parents or caregivers, right? So this is so sad. So we just have to make sure that we do report it. It's just, and then if it's wrong, well, it's wrong. That's okay, right? So, the Child Help USA National Child Abuse Hotline is 1-800-4-A-CHILD. So that's a good number to have. The hotline's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 1-800-4-A-CHILD, and you can just find that on their website, too, Child Help. Just type into your browser, Child Help. It's a great website. Contents of the report. Reporting laws also describe the information that must be contained in the report. Typically, reports contain the following information, which is like the name, age, sex, and address of the child, the nature and extent of the child's injuries or condition. And they always say, the nature and extent of the child's injuries. They always say, in most websites that I've actually seen where they're talking about reporting, especially of physical, if you notice physical abuse, then you need to say bruise on right cheek, welt on left leg, whatever it is. You can't just say, oh, the child appears to be hurt, because that will not stand up in court. The child appears to be hurt, like in what way, like what, you have to be very particular and very, take note of what you see, right? Missing hair from the scalp, burns on the hands, bruises and welts. You have to be very specific in where they are on the body, right? The name and address of the parent or other persons responsible for the child's care. This is stuff that they want to see. Any other information relevant to the investigation. It says, it is essential that reporters provide as much detailed information as possible about the child's condition and the child's whereabouts, the parents and their whereabouts, the person alleged to have caused the child's condition and his or her current location, if you know this type of thing, right? The family, including other children in the home, that's very important because they need to know if there's more children so that they can get them to safety too, and know to look out for them, right? The type and nature of the maltreatment, such as the length of time it has been occurring, whether the maltreatment has increased in severity or frequency, whether objects or weapons were used, right? And it's just, so important. My God, these kids are being killed. It says, if the alleged maltreatment occurred in an out-of-home care setting, reporters should provide information about the setting, such as hours of operation, maybe like a daycare or, whatever, number of other children in the facility if known, identification of any others in the facility who may have information about the alleged maltreatment, and things like that, right? We'll scroll down here. And special issues, exceptions, and penalties related to reporting. To encourage reporting of child maltreatment and provide protection for reporters, state statutes include provisions related to privileged communications, immunity for reporters, and penalties for failure to report. The laws also discourage intentionally false reporting through specified penalties. But I think false reporting is like when you're trying to get back at somebody, like maybe a spouse, and there's a custody battle going on, and then this person would say, they would phone in and say, well, I think that so-and-so is abusing my child, right, or a child, and they'd get involved and they'd find out that it was false and it was done out of vindictive. They just wanted to get back at the other spouse, so they just make a false allegation, and I mean that wastes their time. They need to be helping kids that are truly being abused. So there are sick people out there that would do something like that. You know what I mean? You just know it, right? It just takes all kinds around this world to be. It just does. We know this kind of thing probably happens, and That's just stupid because there's real problems out there with kids who are really being abused, and they need the attention, right? Not some false allegation. But that's only for people that know that their babies or their child's being looked after completely 100% okay, but the other parent or the other partner is not happy with the decision that there's a custody battle going on, see? So that's a false allegation, and that's not cool, right? It takes away from what is needed to help these kids out here who are really being abused and whose life are being threatened, right? When they have to stop and deal with a case that is actually false. So that's not cool. Underreporting, it says numerous professionals admit that during their careers they have failed to report suspected maltreatment to the appropriate agencies. One possible reason is that professionals still lack training and knowledge about legal obligations and procedures for reporting. The issue of subjectivity also may account for some of the underreporting of abuse. See, some people just think it's okay to beat children. Some people think it's all right if they see a bunch of welts and bruises on a child. They just think, oh, well, the child was misbehaving, so the parent had to discipline them. Subjectivity, right? People just don't snap when it comes to this kind of thing, right? If you can see a welt or a bruise on a child, then the discipline was too much, and it's actually called abuse. Because what it is anything that harms a child on purpose, intentionally, harms a child, is abuse. So if you leave marks and you leave bruises on a child, that is abuse. I just don't care what anybody says. You know what I mean? Burns, right? That's absolutely unacceptable. But there's still a lot of people out there that think it's okay to do this stuff. But what they don't realize is the damage that they cause. And maybe some people think, well, I was treated that way when I was a child and they never did me any harm. And it's like, well, I think you've been brainwashed. Seriously brainwashed. Children were not put on the earth to be beaten around, and it's better. There's better ways to discipline. There's better ways to, because kids do need direction and they do need discipline, but they do not need abuse, and they do not need to be just told off and beaten up and made to feel lowly and killed. And I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. No, children need direction. They need some type of boundaries set, right? And if the parents don't have that ability, then they need to learn it. So they need to go to parenting classes so that they can learn how to properly raise their children. Because there's too many normal people out there who do know how to properly discipline, and they end up with, there's no abuse, the children grow up happy and healthy, and they still had the proper kind of discipline. Beating children is not proper. It's just not cool. Back in the old days, it was great. Everybody could just beat their kids and kill them, no problem. Nowadays, there's laws. Thank God. And that's what I'm here to do, is to fight to back up these laws, and this is what I do. It's called public advocacy, and this is what I do. I stand up for children. I stand up and fight against child abuse. I'm standing up for child's rights around the world, and not only in North America, but worldwide, and I'm standing up to be a voice for children, and I will continue to do this until the day I die. So there we go. And I hope about millions and millions of people will come after me. That'd be great. And we can stop this mess, because I do believe we can. It says one of the biggest obstacles. Now this is what I was reading, and I just sit here and I think, man, this is just so true. One of the biggest obstacles to reporting is personal feelings. Some people who do not want to get involved. Others have difficulty reporting a person they suspect is an abuser, especially if they know that person well. Still, others may think they can help the family more by working with the child or the family themselves. And mandated reporters may believe that their professional relationship with the child will be strained if they report their suspicions of abuse. So this is the thing. People don't want to get involved, and they don't want to report a person that they know or that they love, right? A lot of times it's a family member, and they think, oh, but if I report Uncle Joe or Grandma, they'll be taken to court, and especially if the abuse is actually proven and they're found guilty, and then Grandma won't be able to come over and sit with us on Saturdays anymore. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's absolutely sick and ridiculous that people would think it's okay to go ahead and let a child continually be abused just because they're going to miss the other person who's the abuser, or they don't want to make waves within the family. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. And this goes on all the time. And it's because people just do not want to do the right thing. Because honestly, that's the right thing to do, is to report it. And, it's sad and unfortunate. And, this is the whole situation. People knew that I was being mistreated. They did absolutely nothing about it. And they just, I'd show up to their house with a big welt on my face, and they knew the treatment that my mom was treating me, and I was always very much under her thumb, and especially as a young, very small child. and being dragged around, told off, hit and slapped around and beat. And a lot of times I didn't see the beatings because my mom would do that like in the home. But sometimes I'd be beaten out in public too, especially in parking lots, like say a shopper, like a shopping parking lot, like grocery store parking lots. Is quite often if I went to the store with them, I'd be told off for misbehaving, and then I'd be taken out to the car and beaten right there in the parking lot. And nobody would intervene, right? And there were family friends who knew what was going on and did not report it because they loved my parents, and they wanted my parents to be able to come over for coffee. See, so they were like, oh well, we can't report them because if we do, we'll lose our coffee buddies. You know what I mean? And it's just like our card buddies. I mean, how sick and how sad is that? Especially after knowing, because I did disclose the abuse to a family, and they just didn't do anything about it because they loved my parents so much, right? So this is the thing. Love runs deep, doesn't it? But you know what? These children are hurting, and that's no excuse. Love runs deep. You know, I love my parents too, but do I agree with what they did? No. Do I think that the abuse that they caused their family and put the abuse that they inflicted upon their family and each other was right? No. There's no excuse for abuse. There is no excuse, and no one should be excluded. You know what I mean? Sure, you know, I mean, some people ask me, how could you love your parents after they did what they did to you? And, you know, I mean, I have this question quite a bit. And it's like, because they're my parents. But, you know what I mean? I thought I hated them for many years and found out that I really didn't hate them. I just hated what they did. But, yeah, this is what goes on in families. This is why I'm bringing this up tonight, because this is what goes on in families. You know, it's like, but we love Grandpa. We don't want to turn him in, you know, even though Grandpa's been sexually molesting all the grandkids. But do they want to turn him in? No, because he's Grandpa and he's like 80 years old, but he's still a sick, sad child sexual predator, right? So this is what I'm saying. It's like, well, what are we going to do at Christmas time? Grandpa won't be around. It's like, no, because Grandpa shouldn't be around because he's molesting and abusing these children. So that's what I'm saying. We got to draw the line. We have to, as a society, care more about the children and the abuse they're suffering than the abuser. The abuser is getting all the care and all the attention. The children are ending up in graves or cremated somewhere. If they aren't, you know, if it's a crime, they'll probably be put into a grave just because they don't cremate murder victims, right? But the thing is they're put in a box. They're dead. They're gone. All because Aunt Jane or Uncle Joe or Mama or Papa decided to kill them. It was a decision they made, a choice that they made. And what? Everybody cares about the parents or the aunt and uncle or whoever it was. No, we got to stop caring about the abusers and start caring about these kids. Is what we have to do. And the thing is it's because people develop over the years these relationships with these adults who are abusers, and they don't have any relationship with this little tiny child, so that the little tiny child doesn't mean anything to them. So they just don't care about that little kid, and they don't care whether that kid's being abused because they like Aunt Joe and Uncle Jane to come over for the barbecue. You see what I'm saying? Like, the boundaries have got to be redrawn, and people need to start waking up to this stuff. This is so incredibly serious. It's happening in homes. 90 to 95% of abuse happens in homes. So that's why we have to get people to change their mind about what they're doing and get these children some help, you know. And, you know, it's got to happen. It will happen. But it's just the sooner the better, because in the meantime here tonight, we're going to lose so many children tonight due to abuse. You know, there'll be so many killed, and the rest, the thousands, will end up in the hospital due to abuse-related injuries, and then the other thousands won't even get reported, and they'll just be sitting in their cribs or lying in their bed half dead, right, wondering if they're going to be killed tomorrow or the next day, or, you know what I mean? Or it's so incredibly sad, and that's why, you know, we can't talk about this enough. That's why I keep going on and on about it. But anyway, we have about a minute left. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm not sure how much more of this article we'll continue on with. We might, I'll check it out, and otherwise we'll change the subject for Friday. But we might go ahead and finish it off on Friday. So thanks everybody for being here, and don't forget to check out Dreamcatchers for Abused Children website, www.dreamcatchersforAbusedChildren.com. And I'll be back on tomorrow morning with one child abuse survivor to another, 6 o'clock a.m. I missed my show this morning because I slept in. I actually turned off all my alarms, which is unfortunate. But I'll be there tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock a.m. And yeah, have a great night. Take care of yourselves, and we'll be talking to you real soon. Please check out Janelle Matula's blog talk show here. Janelle Matula is the South Central Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. We were just on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio a little while ago, and she's got her own show as well, dealing with domestic violence and abuse and whatnot. She's very knowledgeable, and she's an awesome lady. And type into the browser, into Dreamcatchers, Blog Talk Radio, type in Janelle, Janell, Matula, Matula, and see if you can bring it up there. Dreamcatchers _ Angels. I'm not sure exactly what her website is actually called. I keep forgetting. But anyway, she's on. Check her out, Janelle Matula, and she's got an awesome show coming up here pretty soon in about a half an hour. So take care, everybody. Actually, I think it's coming up right now. Take care, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.